Hello everybody, this is Jim from Tutorky. I'd like to talk about some mistakes that my students sometimes don't know they're making. The first mistake is oftentimes they don't know what kind of errors they're making. I've had students that have been studying for a long time, perhaps they've been self-studying, and they need a teacher to point out what their errors are. The second thing my students oftentimes don't know is when they're saying something unrelated to the topic. Sometimes it's because they believe it's polite in their language to say that. Other times they say it because they just don't know that it's not related. For example, I could say something like, I prefer buying a house because renting is very expensive. Well, in this case, buying a house is also expensive, right? So it doesn't do you any good to say that renting is expensive. The third thing my students sometimes don't know is that their studying methodology is not good enough. Especially, for example, when you're studying reading, you can't just check the answers and then go on to the next reading. You need to understand that reading thoroughly. You need to understand what is the topic of the reading. You need to understand the new vocabulary. You need to know how that new vocabulary is used in English. Another thing my students often ask me is if there's any shortcuts, ways that, strategies that they can use to pass the test quickly. Well, I can teach some strategies, but let's face it, it takes a long time to learn vocabulary. If you take the example of a native speaker, it took them many, many years to learn English. And that's what you're going to have to do. You have to put the work into it. Okay? And then the last thing is some of my students may not know that the class they're taking is not sufficient. You need to make sure that your class, the CELPIP class you're in, your teacher is correcting your work, right? So not all CELPIP classes are good. There are many good ones out there. So I guess what I'd like to say is that if you find that you just can't get the mark you want, it might be a good idea, if you've been studying on your own, to simply find a good school. The other possibility is finding a private tutor. I teach at a school, and I also do private tutoring. Private tutoring has the advantage of you get help on all of your writings. I go through the grammar, I go through the corrections, and so I guess if you'd like to have a private tutor, you're welcome to check my website, Tutorky. That's all I have to say, and I wish you guys luck on passing that CELPIP test.